Laugh at the cringe, learn from the crumble. This is Cringe and Crumble. Welcome to the podcast where honesty meets humor and the messy parts of life finally get their spotlight. I'm your host, Tranisha, and here we dive into dating, friendships, healing, and all the awkward in-betweens. Because here's the truth, growth isn't always pretty, but it's always real, so let's get into it. Welcome at the Cringe and Crumble. I'm your host, Tranisha, and welcome to 2026, or if some people like to say 2026. I thought this episode would be quite fitting to start off the year because I feel like at the beginning of each year, we always like to start off with a clean slate. And I overheard this woman say, don't be a loser in your own story. Now, when I hear this, I think to myself, how am I being a loser in my own story? Is it by the way that I'm talking to myself internally? That's what it is. Because some of us, if you think about it, is losing in life, not because we're not capable, but because of the way we're narrating our life like a loser. So what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to be mean, but it is the way that we talk to ourselves in our head. If someone could hear your inner dialogue out loud, they'd be like, wait a minute, I don't think you like her because of the negativity that you are probably saying to yourself within. So today's episode is called Don't Be a Loser in Your Own Story, Ego versus Your Higher Self. So we're going to be talking about self-talk, belief, and how to get delusional, but stay grounded about the version of you you're becoming. Because this is our glow up era, which I think is 2026. Let's start it off right. And let's not think about the past. So, quick disclaimer before we jump into the episode. Now, when I say delusional, let me be clear. I don't mean ignoring your real life reality, stop paying bills, quit your job, none of that crazy stuff. But what I mean is stop agreeing with the voice in your head that's been rehearsing failure. Because that voice, even though it's loud and familiar and it sounds like the truth, but let's be honest, it's just fear being amplified from within. And fear can be very persuasive, and it sounds very responsible and mature sometimes, and even in other cases, very spiritual. But fear will narrate you right into a life you don't even want. So, who is actually narrating your story? Everybody has this, that the narrator is either your ego or your higher self. And when I say ego, your ego is the storyteller. It's the protagonist's voice. It's that part of your brain that's a little fearful. And then your higher self is more of that observer, the calm voice, and the truth teller. And so when I say ego, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying that your ego is the part of you that's often driven by fear. It's always trying to protect you from shame and fears of failure. And it's convinced you that you're not enough. So what happens is it searches for safety through external things. You think about it. It's like validation and control. Because of that, the ego tends to seek external validation. When you're looking at your TikTok feeds, Facebook feeds, or even at work or in a relationship, there's always some point that needs to be proved. Like you need to win an argument or compare yourself to other people. The ego also likes to focus on the I. Your identity is tied to the roles and achievements that you receive, and it keeps focusing on the I, not the we or the greater good. It likes to create division. It thinks about everything in like a black and white scenario. It's either me or them. And what it does, it leads to this type of anxiety, frustration, and sometimes resentment at other people when really it's just yourself. So if your inner narrative likes to say things like, I'm not enough, it never works out for me, or I'm not worthy of a relationship, I'll never get selected for that job, or it's just my luck, just know that's not the truth. That's just your ego trying to keep you in a familiar lane, because to the ego, unfamiliar feels dangerous. And the wild part is you don't even realize you're saying it like a belief, because in your inner dialogue, if you keep repeating this, it kind of feels like fact. You think of it as your identity. The higher self operates from a place of rationality and inner peace. There's no type of frantic behavior, and it's not trying to prove something. It sees mistakes as lessons and operates from love and acceptance and not lack thereof. So, the higher self tends to be driven by presence and often seeks authenticity, which is that inner knowing and a connection. But also, there's a bit of wholeness with it. You're already complete, you think about it. Mistakes are learning opportunities. And it also likes to foster those connections. Think about compassion. So when your narrator sounds like, okay, that hurt, but we're learning what's the next move, that's not delusion. That's maturity. That's the higher self. Now, here's why this matters. If your ego is narrating your life, it will keep you trapped in a loser narration. The ego doesn't actually want you free, it wants you to be safe. And safety to the ego means don't try too hard, don't risk rejection, and don't be visible. Also, don't try to be cringe. So, what happens is when you keep rehearsing that defeat, your brain starts treating it like a plan. You start moving like somebody who expects to lose. So you stop applying for the job because they're not going to pick me anyway. Or you stop posting that content because you think to yourself, nobody cares. You stop dating with standards because I can't be too picky. And you also stop trying because trying makes you feel visible, and being visible makes you feel vulnerable. So you shrink, and then you call it being realistic. However, that's not really being realistic because that's fear, keeping you in a box with a little cute bow on top of it. And listen, the ego isn't always dramatic though, because sometimes it tells you jokes. I'm just not that girl. I'm a mess, this is like girl math. I'm unlucky, but it is what it is. Some of y'all are joking your way into a whole life you don't even want because words are neutral. And especially the words you say to yourself. If you keep talking to yourself like you're doomed, you'll start living like it too, which no one wants to feel that way. So, how do we tell the difference and shift ourselves from the ego to our higher self? It's all down to how you talk to yourself, how it feels in your body. The ego really feels tight, it feels pressure and anxiety. But your higher self feels this warmth, expansiveness, and calmness. It's also in the voice. Ego asks, what if, how can I win? Or how can I avoid looking stupid? But your higher self is quieter. It gives you what you need to hear and not what you fear. Also, think about the action check. Are you proving, protecting, or perfecting? That's the ego. Or are you creating, contributing, connecting, and cultivating something? That is your higher self. This is why meditation and stillness matters, not to be an aesthetic, but to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them. When you can observe the ego, you stop letting it drive yourself. So now the question is, how do we stop letting the ego narrate our story? And how do we stop living like we're powerless? That's where we get into the delusional self-belief. So what do? We flip the narrator. And here's the line I need you to carry with you for the rest of the episode. You have to believe in her before you become her, because nobody becomes confident by waiting to feel confident. Nobody becomes secure by waiting to feel safe. And nobody becomes disciplined by waiting to feel motivated. And you become it by practicing it. And this is where the delusion comes in. Delusion isn't lying, it's deciding. It's deciding that your future self gets to lead and not your past. Because ego will keep voting for the past. Because the ego self is like, we already know the pain. We can survive there, so let's just stay there. It's going to be nice. But your higher self, if you think about it, is like, we're not doing this forever. And I want to give you all the real life example of what I mean. I read Diana von Furstenberg's memoir, The Woman I Wanted to Be, and it stayed with me for a very long time. What was great about it is that she's so confident. And it was watching how many versions of herself she had to outgrow. She was in different rooms and different relationships in different seasons where the outside looked glamorous, but you could tell the internal work is, who am I when nobody is clapping, and who am I when the fantasy wears off? Who am I when I have to rebuild? And that's what becoming really is. It's not a vibe, it's not a caption, it's not a before and after. It's a decision you make over and over until it becomes your identity. So when I say get delusional, I'm saying stop letting the ego control the narrative. Repeat after me. My fear is loud, but it's not in charge. Because some of you all have been living like fear is wisdom, your intuition and realism. But fear is not a prophet. Fear is just a protection mechanism. And sometimes it's trying to protect you from pain by keeping you small. Delusion isn't pretending you don't have problems. It's refusing to make your problems your personality. It's really deciding your higher self is leading now. What do? You start loving like it's already done. You start speaking like the deal is sealed and moving like the doors are already open. Not because you're ignoring reality, but because you're building a new one. So let's make it practical. Instead of, I hope I'm confident one day, say, I am practicing confidence like it's my job. Instead of, maybe I'll be successful, say, I move like a woman who gets results. Let's say I'm becoming her. And because the brain doesn't just respond to outcomes, it responds to repetition. So if your mind hears the same I can't story long enough, it will produce evidence to match it. But if your mind hears the same I am capable story long enough, it starts looking for proof. And before you roll your eyes, I know it sounds kind of weird that this isn't toxic positivity, because toxic positivity is it's fine, it's fine, it's fine while you're crying in the shower. And this is very different. This is, I'm not okay right now, but I'm not doomed and I'm not done. That's self-belief, because self-belief isn't denial. It's loyalty to your own growth. And some of you need to practice loyalty to you, because you will hype everybody else up. You'll believe in your friends. You'll encourage your partner. You'll also root for strangers online. But when it comes to you, you act as though you're the exception. Like you don't get to win. It won't work out for you. And you have to earn the right to take up space. And I'm telling you right now, that era is done. It's over. You don't wait to feel like her. You move like her until your feelings catch up. Which brings me to the rules. Because if this is your glow up era, we need boundaries. I mean, lots of boundaries. We need standards and we also need language. Because a new story requires new habits. So let's set some rules for 2026. Rule number 1, no more self-sabotaging jokes. We can't be calling ourselves ugly. We can't be talking very negative to ourselves or saying that we're unlovable, that we're crazy. We're completely done. Rule number 2 is we got to stop auditioning, because I know a lot of us do audition. We're not on America's Next Top Model. We're not on any type of reality show. So always remember, you get to decide what you're available for. Number 3, you move first and you feel later. Waiting to feel ready is just fear. So do it nervous, do it unsure, do it anyway. Rule number 4 is let's protect our narrative. Everybody does not need front row seats to our becoming, because privacy is not secretive, it's strategic. So always remember that. Move in silence. Number 5, choose your narrator on purpose. When your ego shows up, you just don't argue with it, you just observe it. And choose your higher self anyway, because ego is always loud and your higher self is always steady, and steady always wins. Let's do a few swaps. So let's just write these down. So let's think about this. I am behind is another way of being I'm on time. I always choose wrong means I'm learning faster now. Nobody wants me? No, let's change that too. I'm not available. I'm no one's second best. I can do it. I can do this next step. And I'm not her. Always remember, I'm becoming her daily. Let's do a little bit of homework. Let's pick one sentence you've been saying in your head that keeps you small and shrinks you. The one you say when nobody else is around, and the one you whisper to yourself when you're disappointed or tired or scared. Let's ban it. Because you can't build a soft life with a cruel inner voice. So then I want you to replace it with one sentence you're building with. One sentence that tells your nervous system, we're safe to try again. One sentence that tells your future, I'm coming. She's not waiting on motivation, she's waiting on agreement. So agree with her, believe in her before you become her, and love like it's already done, and speak like the deal is sealed, because when the ego tries to come back, because it will, that's very true, you don't have to fight it, you just don't have to follow it. You can always say, I hear you, but you're not driving me today. Because you're not a loser in your own story. You are the author. You're the higher self. And every day when you wake up, you get to write the next line. If you have a friend, or even if you find yourself talking crazy to yourself, I want you to re-listen to this episode and really think about your ego and your higher self and see how you connect with that. Because 2026 really is your year to glow up and be the version of the person that you are meant to be, not the falsified person that your ego wants you to be. Thank you again for listening to Cringe and Crumble. I'm your host, and I'll speak to you next time. Ciao. Laugh at the cringe, learn from the crumble. This is Cringe and Crumble. Until next time.